In today's episode, we're going to go over a popular question people ask. How would you invest if I had $1 million to invest? Well, we found an article that gives a take on several different financial advisors and how they'd answer the question. But we're going to analyze what their answers are and maybe give you a couple extra tidbits of overlays. Let me grab Walt and we'll dive right in.
It's another episode of Power Your Retirement. Welcome. I'm Walter Storholt, alongside, as always, certified financial planner Steve Smith. And today, as Steve told you, we're going to talk about, $1 million to invest. What do I do with it now? One of the more popular questions out there. And Steve, welcome to the show. Good to talk to you as always. Have you ever legitimately gotten that question specifically from somebody in your office, like that direct? Hey, I have $1 million. Where do I put it?
So that question surprisingly comes up from our young people. So I teach a finance class that has to do with 401ks and just a one-on-one investing in local high schools and wherever I get invited in. Sometimes it's community-based groups, and I go in, and that is like the number one question.
That's great.
If I had $1 million, how would you invest it? From the young ones.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not? It's a great one.
That's cool. All right. Well, here's the idea. So this article, which we've linked to in the description of today's show, if you want to check it out, this was the initial prompt that they gave these three financial advisors. We're going to analyze their answers. This is what they were asked. So this gives a little more detail to the question. How would you advise a hypothetical investor who is in his or her late 40s, owns a home, has $300,000 in a retirement account, and $300,000 in other assets, and $1 million cash to deploy in today's market? So a 40-year-old who's doing, even late 40s, who's doing well with all of those assets at their disposal, that was the prompt. All right, so here's what the pros said. And I'm curious, Steve, just what do you think of the different strategies? Do they line up with how you would advise a client working with you or walking through the door, asking one of those kinds of questions? And we can kind of hit each one one by one here. So
Sure.
The first one was a woman named Stephanie Link from Hightower Finance. She said, just to kind of bullet point this, diversification would be a main goal. Looking for 60 to 70% in equities, 20 to 30% in bonds and private equity, and then cyclical sectors and dollar cost averaging. Those would be the goals that she would have for that $1 million deployment. Any initial reactions to that one?
Well, that is your standard, and I'm going to use my own words here. That's your Stay Rich program. Right?
Stay Rich program. I like that.
That's your Stay Rich program. It's pretty mainstream, not looking to get some outsized returns, making sure that you don't make any fatal, timing issues like the dollar cost averaging, diversification. I mean, all of those things, but they still want some return. You got some bonds and you got some stocks, probably on the dividend paying side, I would guess. So that one is your classic Stay Rich program for sure. All it is.
If I'm flipping it around, what I'm hearing is that's for, in terms of like who it's a fit for, would be somebody in their late 40s that maybe already owns their dream home, maybe where they plan to retire in the future. They don't plan to be buying a bunch of expensive cars. They're not trying to afford an extra vacation home by retirement. Like you said, they want to just stay where they are, stay rich, stay protected, and the vanilla plan, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Just keep the defense up, but still get a decent return.
I like that. All right. So James Thome, sorry for the pronunciation on that one, at Wellington Altus, said, again, here's the recap: innovation, AI heavy, NASDAQ, S&P, China ETF, 10% gold and Bitcoin, energy, financials. I can tell this is a little bit of the higher risk plan already, right?
Well, I guess. So I would call this the Get Rich program.
Okay, get richer.
This is the Get Rich program. Get richer. I guess it's all, some people $1 million is a lot, and others $10 million is a lot. It just kind of depends on the situation. But this is the get rich program, and most of those I actually really like on the get rich program. I'm not real sold on the China ETF, but other than that, those are all really in vogue right now for the get rich program. And for your young folks, it's an amazing way to go. They've got time to redo if they had to. But and even I'll even throw a caveat. I do this frequently. Even if you have somebody that's a little bit older, uh, to put a 10% sleeve of this in keeps them interested. Even if
Okay.
it blends in and it kind of waters down the returns of the get rich, it's something that's exciting for those that pay a little bit more attention than your average just check in on the returns quarterly.
Yeah, for somebody that still wants to take a flyer on AI or a particular sector and have a little bit of that danger in the portfolio, maybe that kind of thing.
Yeah, just a small slice. Keep it real. It's
Okay.
good.
So we've had the stay rich, the get rich. I'm interested to see your categorization of the final one here. So Dennis Poljak, perhaps from Steward Partners, said 70 to 75% equities, conservative bonds, treasuries, tech and AI also included, industrials, healthcare, financials, staples at the end. Thoughts on that one?
So that one doesn't have anything to do with rich. Okay.
Okay.
We'll keep that, the stay rich, get rich over there. This is what I would call the slow and steady. Just like the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race. You've got you've got a little bit ultra conservative on the bonds, but you got a little spice of life in your equities, but then you also have all the boring in there as well. So that's a well-rounded, your typical work, work towards retirement, probably in that 40 to whenever they decide to retire. It's really, really great. That's your standard way to get to retirement.
Okay, excellent. Well, good breakdown on those, Steve. So I'm curious if we can just move away from their specific recommendations, back more to your opinion and your side of things, Steve. And let's talk about ages, since you kind of started to lean into that a little bit. Hey, this might be a fit for someone in that 40 to 60 range, or, oh, this is for the young guns out there. So can you contrast how different ages might shift your answer when you're in those classes teaching the young folks asking what to do with this $1 million versus someone on the precipice for retirement who's asking what to do with $1 million that maybe they've just inherited or from selling a business or something like that?
Well, the easy ones are the young ones should be taking risk. If they're in bonds, they're in the wrong place. If you're in your 20s and you're in bonds, unless you have a specific reason to be in them, I'm just talking about an accumulation over 40 years. In that context, but they should be taking the higher risk. Of course, on the flip side of that, you got your 70s right there. It kind of depends on how much income they need, but I do agree with having it a little more conservative and a little more income. They may have some tax issues, a little more tax management, things of that nature is going to be in there. The problem I have is kind of in the middle, because that's why we do the financial planning. That's why I'm a CFP, because it's a little bit all over the board, depending on their risk level, depending on their need for return, depending on just a whole lot of different things. Inheritances, maybe they have side hustles, maybe they have real estate, own a business. There's so many variables that in between that 40s to 70s, it can really vary a lot. And that's why I put in there with like the AI, the get rich program. We'll pepper that in just to keep people interested. In a small percentage. We'll also, people that are a little more risk averse, will put in, like another one said about conservative treasuries. We'll put some of that in there just to give that stability to them. Hey, if interest rates go up and down, we've got these short duration treasury bills. You don't have to worry about. We've got lots of stability in there if everything would temporarily go down.
Yeah, I really like how you describe that. Easier to answer this question if you're younger or older. Right in the middle is where the complexities really pop up, and it makes total sense as to why. So let's look at what the article is missing, because not every article is going to cover all the nuances, right, of planning for retirement or your finances and those kinds of things. This looked very specifically at that $1 million question, but I'm just curious, take us beyond the portfolio. What's missing from this article that's worthwhile to mention? If someone had that question about $1 million, but more than
Right.
just where am I investing it, what else comes along with that territory?
Oh my goodness. Let's pick a couple highlights that can really be of consequence to people. So if they have $1 million of cash coming in, they're depending on where they're at in life. If they've got a bunch of 401k that's like in pre-tax, or traditional IRA that's in pre-tax, that cash can help do a Roth conversion, because then you can dollar for dollar convert it and then use some of that cash to pay the tax. Now you've got to make sure you're not paying high tax brackets and things, but that cash coming in is a real nice way to make those Roth conversions, which, grows tax free, especially if you're in a state like California or New York or one of those other ones along the way that have higher rates. It's definitely a good opportunity to take a look at Roth conversions. Then you also have another thing is that sequence of returns, and you say, what in the world is that? And it's probably one of the biggest things that I have to educate on. It's top 10 for sure, right? Before we figure out the portfolio, because can you imagine having an all equity portfolio in 2007, right?
Ouch.
For the other ones, can you imagine having an all equity in 2021 if you're a little bit younger and just went through something a little bit more recent, not quite as dramatic, but more recent? You've got to be able to understand that, because if you any one of those, even the 21, you're getting hit with inflation. And then also you've got bonds going down 10 to 15%, and you've got stocks going down 20. That looks pretty terrifying if you just retired in 21. And that's what that sequence of returns is. If you do really bad right out the gate in the first few years, your probability of success goes down dramatically.
Yeah.
If you have really great years, so if you basically retired in 2012 or something like that, and you've had this huge growth in the early part of your retirement, amazing. So that's the sequence of returns risk. And then another thing is you always want to have that liquidity. I've alluded to it a couple different ways of what you could do that, but having those liquidity needs for short-term things that pop up. When I talk about, grandma's rainy day fund, or Murphy visiting you, or getting an extra room in your house, whatever that is, that those liquidity needs are something that we need to make sure that we provide for as well.
There's certainly one very resounding lesson from today's episode, and it's that you can ask different financial advisors, what do you do with $1 million right now? But every single example that we laid out today, you really saw the need for that extra layer of planning, and that's the customization, the uniqueness to where you are in life, not just your age, but other things that are important to you, other things you have going on. And so it's fun to talk about the what ifs, but whether it's $1 million or 250,000 that you have to invest, or somewhere in between or outside those margins, doesn't really matter, because ultimately it's going to be coming in, how does this fit into your situation, zooming out, looking at some of these other moving parts to find the real answers for your future. But fun exercise nonetheless to look at some of these responses. Just remember, all those moving parts need that custom look at your situation. So in the meantime, if you've got questions, maybe you are getting an inheritance of some amount and you're wondering, how do I invest? How do I utilize? How do I deploy these dollars? Or you've saved up a bunch of money and you have it deployed currently as you're working and going through your working life, and wondering, am I allocated properly? Am I diversified? If you have these big question marks about your financial situation, don't hesitate to reach out. You can get in touch with Steve by going to powerupyour401k.com. You can order the toolkit for free. That's going to have Steve's book in it. It's going to have additional commentary and more resources as well. And you can book a visit with Steve to see if you're a good fit to work with one another. And he can talk about some of these big opportunities and advantages that are out there based on your particular situation, especially if you're an employee of a publicly traded utility. Steve's got a lot of great programs that are very unique to the industry and only available to folks like you. So definitely take advantage of inquiring about that if you fall into that spectrum as well. All of that contact information is in the description of today's show to make it easy for you to find. And Steve, good breakdown on this conversation about where to put that $1 million. It's fun to go through those thought experiments sometimes, I think.
I agree. And if this is hitting home, like you have a large sum, whether it's $1 million or not, you're probably going through a lot of emotions. And it will only get more once you invest it. And one of the things that people ask all the time is, what's the number one thing you can provide that will help me in this situation when they're feeling emotional and in the investment process? And it's, everyone is subjective about their money because they have feelings and that personal tie. And it's very difficult to be objective about the decisions with their money. And that is the number one thing that I deliver to clients, is that I can have that objective view that most people, if not all, can't bring to their own money situation. They can read all the books, but bringing that home, being objective about your own money, is very difficult.
Yeah, having that help controlling your emotions might power your retirement more than anything else. And that's the name of the show, by the way. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll look forward to talking to you next time. Great parting thoughts, Steve. Appreciate that. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
This podcast is provided by Powerhouse Financial Advisors, an independent firm with advisory services offered through Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc., PAS, a federally registered investment advisor. The information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as personalized investment advice. PAS does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of this information for your specific circumstances. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry a degree of risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any case studies, testimonials, or endorsements shared in this podcast are illustrative of individual experiences and may not be representative of the experience of all clients. They do not guarantee future performance or success. You should not infer any level of assurance regarding future financial outcomes. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any investment decisions. Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Be sure to consult with your tax and legal professionals regarding your specific circumstances. For a copy of our Form ADV Part 2A, which provides additional information about PAS, including our advisory fees and services, please visit powerhousefinancialadvisors.com.